So let's go to the Barb's Harley-Davidson Sports Hotline and welcome into the locker room Paul Domowitch from the Philadelphia Daily News. How you doing, Paul?
Good, Billy. How are you?
All right, we're having a little technical problem there. So, Domo, you're down at practice, right?
Yeah.
What's the obviously it's upbeat with Sirianni and a new coaching staff. What's it like just taking it all in? Obviously we didn't have it last year. So what's it like for you down there this year?
Well, we stopped practice last year. We were in for training camp. We just could not talk to the players in person afterwards. But with a new coach, there's always a certain higher level of enthusiasm. That's certainly the case with Sirianni, who's kind of a excited guy getting his first coaching opportunity. So players seem to be responding to him. The defense has been clearly outplaying the offense at this point early in camp, which is no surprise since that's usually the case early in training camp. But it's a lot more fun being able to be down there watching in person and be able to talk to both the coaches and the players in person.
Damo, in your article in the Daily News this weekend, you basically wrote about the turnover differential ratio. The Eagles haven't had a positive turnover differential since 2017. I'd like to focus on that because the defense got a little stronger with the acquisition of Eric Wilson, Ryan Kerrigan, Steve Nelson. Don't call me Steven. Anthony Harris and Andrew Adams. Talk to us a little bit about your impressions on the defense. Obviously, the defense is always ahead of the offense in training camp. But who do you like so far? Who's been standing out?
Well, they've improved the linebackers certainly. With the addition of Eric Wilson, they're given Davion Taylor, who was their third-round pick last year, and only played 32 snaps as a rookie. They're giving him a lot of early snaps in camp. He's got a lot of speed. The first week there was no contact. They were playing basically in shorts and shells. So we won't get we'll get a better picture starting this week when they are allowed to have some contact. But Josh Sweat looked good up front, which is no surprise. He's been coming on the last couple of years. It's kind of time for him with Brandon Graham probably playing his last season here. They kind of need Josh Sweat to step up and be a difference maker. Eric Wilson's going to help them at linebacker. I'm curious to see. They're going to be better on the back end with Steve Nelson at the other corner as opposed to Avante Maddox, who's going to go inside where he belongs. At 5'8", 5'9", he just was at a disadvantage last year on the outside. That's not where you really want to put a guy that size in the NFL. But he can play inside. He's a physical player. He's a smart player. So he'll do a good job in nickel, probably a better job than Nickel Roby Coleman did last year. So, but with defense, Billy, it comes down to that front four. So we'll see. They really need what they need more than anything is for Fletcher Cox to play like he did in 2018 when he was the second best defensive tackle in the league to Aaron Taylor. Since then, he's been okay the last couple of years, but he's not. They've doubled him, tripled him, and he's not been the unstoppable force that they really need. I think Jonathan Gannon's going to move people around up front. He's going to play different fronts. Sometimes use a 3-man front, mostly a 4. So it'll be interesting to see that they need that front 4 to be dynamic. That's like it was with Schwartz. That's the key to this defense.
We're talking with Paul Domowitch of the Philadelphia Daily News. He covers the team for the paper. And how's Ryan Kerrigan look?
Okay. He's going to be a role player this year. Certainly gives them some depth on that line. He seems to be excited to be here. One less guy Lane Johnson needs to deal with on the other side. Kerrigan's still got something left. So if they use him right, if they don't have to put him out there for, 60 snaps a game, I think he'll be very effective for them in a pass rush role.
Now, Damo, you just alluded to a few minutes ago about putting the pads on and hitting. That's when you're going to start to see really what's what. I mean, that's when the coaches will really maybe be able to make an evaluation. How many times do they get to hit before their first preseason game?
Billy, the NFLPA renegotiated kind of the guidelines last year. I'm not sure what it is. It's not a lot between training camp and before the start of the season. They'll pick their. Most teams have just emphasized so much on staying healthy and getting to the starting line in one piece that they've kind of try to go with as little contact as possible, but they've got to have some practices with pads to get a sense of where your team is at. They've got joint practices coming up with both the Steelers and the Patriots before they play them in the preseason. That's going to help. There'll probably be there won't be any contact in those practices, full contact. I mean, there will be pads probably for at least one of the two sessions with each of those teams. But I expect this week there'll be one or two sessions with pads. They need to see, that left tackle battle between Mulata and Andre Dillard is huge, and the only way you're going to find out what those guys can do is in the preseason games and in the padded practices when they're going one-on-one against the defensive players. So I think that Mulata is going to win that battle ultimately, but those two guys can't duke it out unless they're able to, put the pads on, and that's the same case with a lot of positions.
Yeah, Jordan Mailata, 6'8", 346 pounds. He's a big boy, Paul.
He's an animal. He sure is. I think I'd find some other ways to use him too. If I were Sirianni, I might think about lining him up at fullback a little bit. And,
like the fridge?
Using him that way, yeah.
Hey, Paul, the game has changed. I mean, a few years back, let's go back to the Dick Vermeil. I mean, he was having those guys bang each other. They'd have, 3 practices a day, sometimes 4. And, I mean, you survived the Dick Vermeil practice. You knew you were starting.
Yeah, those days are long gone, bro. Like I said, that seems to be that. I mean, between the restrictions that are on these guys as far as how many practices and pads you can have, and the fear of losing guys before the start of the season, they walk that fine line between making the practices as aggressive as physical as they can without needing to lose guys like even last year without contact.
Right.
You look at that offensive line and the guys they lost. So I mean, there's no, even if you look at like Carson Wentz, I mean that was not a contact injury that he suffered over in Indy. Things happen, but they try to minimize them by keeping the physicality to a moderate degree.
Looking back in retrospect, how lucky are we that Howie Roseman pulled the trigger on that trade? Carson Wentz goes down to what could be a pretty significant injury. We don't know yet, but let's transition to the offense and Jalen Hurts. We just played a clip from Sirianni in the press conference, and he talked about Jalen Hurts in the red zone. He looked pretty sharp yesterday.
I wasn't out there yesterday,
okay.
Billy, but I understand he did look good. Had his moments. Had a nice touchdown throw to Zach Ertz that caught everybody's eye. He's been up and down so far. I mean, he's got to be, he's got to work on the turnovers and his footwork. I'm one of the guys that thought he was, a good pick, and I think he'll be a good quarterback, particularly behind this offensive line this year. But he's got to make the right decisions. He needs to be patient back there. He can't take off and run after his first read might not be there. So I think, he's going to get better and better as time goes on. He just needs to keep the mistakes to a minimum. But I think he's going to, I just love what he brings from the standpoint of being able to run. I just think that's going to be a factor like you're seeing all around the league with these guys that have mobility that just extends and puts so much stress on the defense.
We're talking with Paul Domowitch, covers Eagles for the Philadelphia Daily News. Domo, what do you expect? I mean, do you expect Jalen Hurts to have a good year? I mean, obviously these games are one up front, and with Brandon Brooks is now day-to-day with a hammy, and you got Salomalo, looks like he's going to miss some time. What do you expect? Obviously, the offensive line going forward, if they remain healthy, what do you expect from Jalen Hurts?
Salomalo will be ready long before the start of the season, so I'm going to, I don't think that'll be a problem. Brooks, he's got a hamstring too, which shouldn't, he's been out there watching practice, so it's not a serious hamstring. It concerns you with three guys on that line that are 33 years old about the possibility of them getting hurt. But if they stay healthy, and with the weapons Jalen has around him, including, he's got running backs that can catch the ball. I love the kid they got in the 5th round, Kenny Gainwell. I think he's going to be a real difference maker this year, kind of as a 1-2 punch with Miles Sanders. If Hurts is indeed going to be here for the season, they're back to having two of the best tight ends in the league. So he's going to have a lot of weapons. And then you add to that the fact that he can run. It's just a matter of him being, showing that he can be a decision maker back there, think fast, make the right reads, does all that. I think this kid's going to have a good season, and I think he's going to prove to them that he can be their quarterback going forward.
Tom, what kind of a leader is Jalen Hurts? Who's out in practice? Who's vocal? Do you hear a lot of not chirping, but I guess you hear him talking in practice, being a leader, or is it just all lead by example?
It's kind of a mixture, Billy. Jalen, he's probably established himself at this point more as a leader than he has as an on-the-field player. The guys in the locker room just love him. They love his work ethic. They just seem to, especially a lot of the young guys closer to his age, they just follow him. You talk to them and they can't say enough about him. They like the way, he talks to them. He has meetings after practice with positions, things, you wouldn't see. You don't see a lot of times with a guy that's only got 4 starts in the NFL. A lot of that just comes natural to him. He was like that in college. He's a coach's son.
Well, you can't teach leadership, Paul, right? It's something innate. You either are a leader or you're not.
Right, exactly. We go back to Donovan McNabb, who always said he was a leader, and you always never got the sense that he was when you talk to the players in the locker room.
Right.
He tried too hard to be that and wasn't. This kid's a natural leader.
Right.
Guys just follow him. Now, again, that's all great, but he's got to go out there now and he's got to prove that he can play, or being a leader means nothing.
Right. No, I get you 100%. And then finally, Nick Sirianni pulled his team off the practice field for an hour the other day because he didn't think he was getting the maximum out of them. Well,
it wasn't an hour, but he stopped practice to, because they weren't playing very well. And you like to see that, he's got to prove that he can, just like Andy Reid did when he was here. You got to prove that you can step on their throats when you need to, when you can be harsh with them when you need to. You can't always be kind of the good guy. And, Nick is, these guys seem to like him. They like this whole competitive atmosphere he's brought to camp and to the off season. Going back to the rock, paper, scissors thing to now in training camp every day, they have a winner. The offense is going up against the defense every day. They declare a winner. They apparently have some system to accumulate things during the course of the practice. And, so that kind of sometimes training camp can get a little old real quick, even if you're not being as physical as Vermeil's practices in the old days. But, he's made it into a competition. Whether that helps them in the long run, we'll see. But it's kind of given them some pride in their units during practice, at least.
And now, of course, this Thursday we got the Hall of Fame game. Are you going to be up in Canton for Harold Carmichael's induction?
I am. Yeah,
because Paul, you get a vote, right?
Yeah. Well, on Harold was part of a special class, centennial class, because he's actually a part of the 2020 class, and he's a senior. So we vote after they're nominated. The seniors are nominated by a committee, and then we vote on seniors. But I mean, Harold was one of 10 guys that came in 2020 in an expanded senior class because it celebrated the 100th year of pro football. But he was long overdue. It's going to be great to be there. With him. He's got, I know, a lot of the players from the '80 NFC Championship team are going to be there. Jaworski.
Wow.
I know all those guys are going to.
Ken Dunnick's going to be there. I saw Ken Dunnick's going to be there from the Jersey Man and Philly Man magazine.
Yeah, and I assume Lurie and members of the organization will be there. It's he had to wait an extra year because of the COVID pandemic, canceling last year's ceremony, but which is kind of ironic. I mean, the guy had to wait 31 years to get in, and now he had to wait another year because of a pandemic. But it's going to be it's great for him. There's no more deserving guy than Harold Carmichael.
All right, Paul Domowitch, listen, man, thank you so much for checking in. We really appreciate you giving us an update on practice. Have fun Thursday. Football starts, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Billy. Take care.